Hey, what's up, everybody? Glad to have you back. So, in today's video, I'll pretty much be going over a question that quite a few people have been asking me in regard to my past Dauntless prominence. And this one will pretty much revolve around what it was like for me to coach over 300 plus individuals in various personalized sessions. And pretty much I'll just be going over various things as to how I did it, what I did, the success rate, as well as just the general overall understanding and perspective of a lot of the people I ended up coaching, and in turn, their understanding of not just the trial scene, but trials history, competitive Dauntless, and just in general, in terms of Dauntless overall play. But anyways, guys, let's get ready to listen. Let's take a deep breath, and let's go at it with an open mind. So way back when I essentially retired from competitive Dauntless after my reforged Ember main world record, I decided to take quite a bit of a break from Dauntless competitive and work on helping out my guild, Winter Clan. You see, Winter Clan, if you haven't seen a past video of like when I discussed how its prominence and how big it was, Winter Clan was an incredibly massive undertaking in terms of overall clan and multi-guild work. It was definitely hyper management in the midst of COVID, as we essentially worked with a large influx of individuals that would come in turn participate in various bot-based events that would be scheduled pretty much every day. And a lot of the things that I did in winter were not just to help cultivate an environment that was, well, relatively well-mannered, as well as focused on ensuring that, well, people were conforming towards a vibe that was good, but at the same time teaching as many people as I possibly could when it came to understanding what it was like to compete at the highest level, specifically in Dauntless, and just in general, because I do believe I touched on quite a bit of other games that I was also very proficient at. I used to hold coaching sessions, even had some very prominent players who I played with come in and help out. And it was very fun, because Winter had quite a bit of people coming in and filtering in, asking questions, and wanting to delve a little bit more into understanding what it was like to be someone who made it to top 1 leaderboards in the midst of a competitive week. And it was quite interesting to be able to see everyone's POVs, what people wanted from it, how people just wanted to feel like they earned their top 100 for the first time ever, and even some prospective top 5ers who, well, and then when I was in winter at the time, not many exactly wanted to be prominent in the scene for long, but just wanted to feel what it was like to be up there and to compete at a level that we did. And I thought, that's fun. It was exciting, and it was very fulfilling to be able to see people go through with what they set out to do. And I thought, after the whole winter thing, I thought maybe I could make this a little bit more broad and go deep into either Reddit or official to find other potential prospects when it comes to people wanting to learn. And so I did. For quite a bit of time, I decided to post this big paragraph reach out, as well as some Reddit recruitment posts in regard to the whole coaching thing. And essentially, I did it for free. What I wanted them, or what ended up happening, was that many people, after seeing the post, would end up reaching out to me via DMs and essentially wanted to learn more about it, or schedule a time with me one-on-one, or just understand info in regard to builds. But I always preface that this is one of those things where I want to make sure that the experience is done through VC. And we go through it in a way that could be an hour to 3 hours long. And we deep dive into whatever it is that you want to go deep into. And yeah, I would take some time to play with them as well. Understand who they generally are and what they generally are as a player. And then personally conform, or essentially personalize, each experience to various individuals that approach things in various different ways, whether it be learning, understanding information, and just weapon style. And it was incredible. I met people all around the world. And in turn, I met people all walks of life, as well as age. Bumped into families, a dad and a few of his kids. Bumped into people who, well, didn't exactly know too much English, but wanted to understand a little bit more, so many of which were Spanish, so I did everything I could to remember my high school level Spanish, and in turn used Google Translate to great effect. And in turn, also people from all around the world in terms of like EU and Asia, and it was quite interesting to be able to teach them as much as I possibly could, regardless of the barriers in the way. And it was cool. A lot of them just wanted to understand what it was like to earn their top 100 for the first time, or understand how to get to a point where they can be better at analyzing what they need to do in order to get better step by step. Just to pick my brain a little, and just to understand like what my process was. The stories that existed within trials, the players that they should be watching, and the people they should be trusting. In terms of builds, in terms of information, in terms of just general advice. Many of them were very focused in regard to just getting it done. And funnily enough, I got lucky, and most of them were the people who at least reached out and committed to the one-on-one sessions were more so wanting to do it on their own, rather than just get a carry. And it was nice. It was really, really important to a lot of those guys that such a thing existed as well. Mostly because, well, to many, especially from my understanding of truly just speaking to them in a way that's comfortable and relatively casual, not too formal, of course, and not too formulaic and technical, I've come to understand that a lot of them had a hard time knowing how to even get connected to top-tier players or players who knew what the hell they were doing and were constantly peddled misinformation and, well, things that exactly didn't conform towards a good build, for example, or like a build that was relatively unoptimized, but they didn't know any better, so they used it, or they just didn't know how to optimize their execution or read behemoths in their own way. Taught them quite a bit of the nitty-gritty, as well as the very bare-bones technicals when it comes to the back end. And it's funny because a lot of people tend to not understand how the back end interacts with various interfaces based off imperfect code. And that thing I also taught them as well. So they'd understand from a very pro-level perspective across many games, coming from me, how things worked. Especially with the various different intricacies of spaghetti code, for example. And, especially from somebody who's been able to do it across multiple games at a high level. Dauntless being the highest, of course, but being able to replicate a high level of success across many games in terms of rankings or just overall MMR skill-based matchmaking placements. It's definitely being able to essentially push forward this information with proper evidence and in turn showcase them just straight up, just so they could understand fully without them just relying on what someone is telling them. For them to see it for themselves, for example, was very important to my process. And it was cool. It was a very cool experience because I went into this knowing that it would greatly improve my understanding and my development towards marketing myself, as well as presenting myself and communication across different cultures, across different individuals, across different personalities, etc. And it was fun. It was very fun to be able to do this. Many people couldn't believe it was free. And it was just a joy to be able to help the community in my own way. More so, well, it was kind of a mix between underground and kind of in the front page in a way. I did ask, for example, Mr. Trails and Maelstrom to help me out and see if I could promote the coaching within their respective Discord channels or even one of Maelstrom's videos. And Maelstrom and Trails helped me out quite a bit in terms of just overall traction. It was nice. And what's funny enough in terms of the success rate, there was a good shot of people that actually went through and did what they set out to do. whether it be top 100, top 5, getting or wanting to get more connected to the overall competitive community, and even just top 1 prominence in turn of beating like some of the best there is. Got out of the way of thinking that, they're not that good. Was able to help establish a very high level of elite standard towards their mantle. Help conform mentality that made it so it made sense to them as to how they could do it. Go over the technicals, go over video analysis, go over group dynamics and how they should, in turn, work towards understanding how to play well in groups in turn, or just be very good at knowing what to do in solos. And boom. Had a lot of fellows that ended up going their own path and making a name for themselves. And it was quite nice. And then there's also a ton of people who just got their gold crown on their own without getting carried. A lot of people who just wanted to understand what it was like to get consistent sub-5s. And hell, even had various people who were just like, yeah, I just want to get to a point where my execution is more so top tier. And I wanted to know some cool optimization tricks when it came to execution that, for example, most pro-level players do know. But most casual players, well, don't, especially since not many of them knew where to find this information, especially when it came to videos as well. Despite runs being put, of course, on YouTube. I mean, I'm sure many of you know there's 50 bajillion runs that exist, but that's the thing. For a lot of the people out there who exist as, casual players, they need to be helped step by step a little bit before they can actually come to understand what's even going on in a specific run. So even going over that helped quite a bit. And I gotta say, the whole experience not just benefited quite a bit of people, but also helped me out in the end as well. I ended up being able to translate this understanding of how to present myself, communicate, and turn market to the professional world to great success. And I found quite a bit of fruitful endeavors and in turn transferred the universal skill of communication towards various aspects of my life that ended up greatly benefiting me in the end. And it's been really nice, actually. It's funny how such a small little game, as small as a niche as Dauntless, at the moment, was able to help me out quite a bit, all in all. But at the same time, it's interesting. But the whole coaching thing was fun. The whole coaching thing was great. And what it was like was it was just something to look forward to. And that ended up applying itself and supplying multiple facets of what I wanted to do with my life at that specific point in time. It was great. It was really great. I'm trying to think about various different other stories, but I think I actually might make different specific videos on what it was like to coach specific people, or maybe some notable individuals, for example, that actually, I don't know, is worth noting memory-wise. But that's pretty much it for me. Coaching was fun. Would I do it again? 100%. And I think it was very important, and definitely, it's funny because I remember people asking me back in the day, and there's one more thing, was that this is Dauntless. And games in general, why would you need a coach? Why would you need someone to understand what it was like to play at a high level? And regardless of whoever may say it, they don't exactly get it. The thing is, everyone can learn something new, no matter how good you are. And the thing is that once you stop learning, well, that's when you kind of start to slip and you'll become complacent. The idea of being pro level, in terms of anything, revolves around the idea of constantly adapting to your environments. And I know Dauntless ended up reaching a point where its competition scene wasn't exactly that competitive anymore. And people weren't hyper pushing, or, well, it was a little bit too dominant for its own good for the specific players that held its top 1 spots when other elite teams chose to whether just take some time to pop in here and there or not compete at all for various massive windows of time. And I think it's very important for people to understand the practicality of how much the idea of coaching and learning can bring to somebody, no matter how much you've played something, no matter how pro you are. Just the idea of getting a different perspective, just the idea of understanding and being a student to the craft makes you better at so many different things, and that's the thing, right? I'm definitely one of the best examples when it comes to that, because when you apply Dauntless and the things you learn from it to the real world, it feels preposterous to even think of something that like that could potentially work, but it did. It very much did. And it brought me to a point where I pretty much lead a team in the professional world and make a good living for myself. And it's quite nice, and it's only up from here. And that's the thing. I did everything I could to learn from others while also showing them some insight and knowledge that I had about the game. And it would be a real cool interchange, because it would be a two-way street all the time. Never feel like a dominating presence, or never feel like it was a constant, oh gosh, it's like it has to be formulaic and highly technical, step by step. I have to learn from this guy and he's just going to provide all that to me. No. A lot of my coaching sessions were actually just very well thought out conversations. And it felt very natural. Or I pushed as hard as I could to be. I know there were times where maybe I was a little bit more technical than usual, but that's mostly, well, in turn accommodating for the various different personalities that existed, as well as the various personalities that came to me for help. So just adapting, just learning. And the whole coaching thing was, the value of it all in all, regardless of the game, was definitely worthwhile, I'm sure. But that's pretty much it for me. If I believe there's quite a bit of people still asking me questions, I think I'll just end up answering them in the course of time and just touch on them as I continue to make random videos about my experience in Dauntless in the real world. Because I think that's definitely one of the things I feel like should be touched on more. It really is an interesting thought, and I know I'm not sharing too much details about my life and occupation, but, it's... I hope people are at least able to understand from a logical standpoint what I'm trying to say when it comes to the value of various different methodologies, ways of thinking, as well as just practices. But yeah, that's pretty much it for me, guys, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for taking the time to listen, and if you enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe. It would really help me out in the long run. But anyways, guys, once again, thank you so much for taking the time, and I hope to see you guys on the next one. Take care, and have a great night, and happy holidays. Peace out.